Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and among the many great trailers we saw at Comic-Con was this very interesting trailer for Ready Player One, a film coming out in March 2018, directed by Steven Spielberg from a book by Ernest Cline. And even if you aren't familiar with the book, you're probably like, what the hell is the Iron Giant doing in this movie? So I'm gonna explain what Ready Player One is, background on the book, and why this movie is insanely perfect for what we do here at New Rockstars. And of course, because Ready Player One is a story about pop culture references and Easter eggs, I'm gonna point out every single Easter egg in this trailer. Guys, there are an insane amount. And I think we caught some stuff that no one else did. So let's get started. Are you ready?
I live here in Columbus, Ohio. In 2045, it's still ranked the fastest growing city on Earth. But it sure doesn't seem like it when you live in the stacks.
Okay, so this trailer opens with the voice of Wade Watts narrating the whole setup. So to fill you in on this, in the book, Ready Player One is set in the year 2044, a dystopian future where fossil fuels have been depleted and global warming has set in, making the world this overcrowded junkyard where people have to live in these stacks, these crappy trailers that are piled on top of each other. But people escape that world inside the online virtual reality universe called the Oasis. It was created by a guy named James Halliday, who before he died, announced in his will that he hid an Easter egg somewhere in this universe. And whoever finds it will inherit his fortune and his whole corporation, kind of like Willy Wonka did with his golden tickets. By the way, maybe not the smartest way to ensure the future of your company. Anyway, the hero of this story is Wade Watts. He's obsessed with Halliday. He reads his personal journal that's called Anorak's Almanac, and he has made it his mission in life to learn all the 80s pop culture that Halliday designed the Oasis around so that he can find this egg. Wade is a Gunter, that's a term for egg hunter, also the name of a German foreign exchange student, Gunter, who bullied me at summer camp. I'll never forget you, Gunter. And in the Oasis, he goes under the avatar name of Parzival. By the way, the name Parzival is a reference to the character Percival, the Welshman from the Legend of King Arthur. Percival lives deep in the woods and has never even seen a knight or a sword or a horse, but it's that innocence that leads him to finding the Holy Grail. Ernest Cline based Wade's storyline on this character arc. And looking at these opening shots, we get a sense of how Spielberg is adapting this world of Ready Player One. The stacks look exactly like they do on the cover of Cline's book. I also like the details of the drones buzzing around, and notice that despite this world looking like something out of WALL-E, each home has a satellite dish and several of them have wind turbines. So these small details are giving us a sense of how lived in this world is, and specifically how internet connectivity is really the only thing that matters. Also, with the fuel shortage, alternative energy sources like wind are really essential. Now the next part shows us a lot more Easter eggs, so let's move on.
They called our generation the missing millions. Missing not because we went anywhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere except the Oasis.
Okay, so here we see Wade entering his hideout. Now, Wade normally lives with his aunt because his mother died from a meth overdose. His aunt really only took him in so that she could have more food rations, so he doesn't really get along with her. So he spends all of his time here inside this old van. Now remember, Wade is obsessed with 80s nostalgia from studying Halliday's interests. So Easter eggs are everywhere here. You can actually see a lot more of them in a promo shot published by Entertainment Weekly before Comic-Con. But in this trailer, you can definitely see Garbage Pail Kids stickers on the walls. In real life, those are super rare and extremely valuable now. Also, notice how he keeps his VR headset on a Commodore 64 joystick. Commodore 64 was an early 80s gaming system. And on the shelf behind that, there are these Q*bert stickers. Now, in his voiceover, Wade says that his generation is called the Missing Millions because they all plug in and escape into this virtual world. This is a reference to the term lost generation. It was coined by Gertrude Stein and popularized by Ernest Hemingway in the 1920s. It referred to the generation that came of age during World War I. Many young men died in that war, and the ones who survived had the sense of aimlessness and confusion to them. But it also produced some of the best creative work in American history. Writers like Hemingway and Stein, but also F. Scott Fitzgerald, E. E. Cummings, and tons of others. So the Missing Millions is Ernest Cline's version of that. This generation of aimless youth in a world falling apart, looking to escape inside their own imaginations. And speaking of imagination, the music here is a cover of Pure Imagination from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.
Obviously, it's an appropriate lyric for Wade entering literally this world of pure imagination. But also the movie Willy Wonka and Roald Dahl's book, as I mentioned before, is a clear inspiration for Ready Player One, with the mysterious Halliday's Easter egg hunt, obviously based on Willy Wonka's golden ticket search. Actually, Steven Spielberg reportedly looked into getting Gene Wilder to play Halliday, but Wilder had retired from acting and has since passed away. Now the character is being played by Mark Rylance, whom Spielberg worked with on Bridge of Spies and The Big Guy. Honestly, you can't tell me that's not what the movie's called. Let's move on.
It's the only place that feels like I mean anything. A world where the limits of reality are your own imagination.
Okay, lot going on here. This looks like a scene from the books that's set in a place called the Distracted Globe. That's a nightclub owned by a guy named Ogden Morrow, also known as Og. He is the co-creator of the Oasis, and he's played by Simon Pegg. Actually, his and Halliday's relationship is based on the relationship between Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. Now, Jobs, like Halliday, was credited as this genius visionary behind Apple, and he's now immortalized after his death, whereas Wozniak, kind of like Og, is the underappreciated engineer who actually built the technology that it was based on. And yes, this scene is filled with Easter egg cameos. First, Parzival passes Harley Quinn and Deathstroke from the DC comic universe, and according to Cline, all the guests here are people that we would recognize. I spotted Conan the Barbarian over there on the left, and I could be wrong, but very far on the right in the back, those look a lot like Shrek's ears. Shrek is love, Shrek is life. And then Gandalf from Lord of the Rings can be spotted dancing in the air. Actually, this spinning in the air is exactly how the dancing in this party scene is described in the book. Whee! Let's move on. These Easter eggs keep coming. First, there's the Iron Giant. So in the books, there's a battle featuring Ultraman. Now, Ultraman is the classic 60s Japanese TV show with giant fighting robots. It actually inspired things like Power Rangers, or really the Super Sentai series that Power Rangers dubbed over. Also Pacific Rim, but it sounds like this movie is swapping out Ultraman with the Iron Giant. Also, we see some other characters in this scene, and according to Cline, those are Dido and Shoto. Now in the books, Dido and Shoto are Japanese Gunters. They rival Wade and work as a team as they search for the egg. But look at this structure in the background. This looks like the Temple Syrinx. This is featured in the lyrics and the cover art for an album by the band Rush, 2112. And I won't spoil it, but the lyrics of this album do feature heavily in the plot for Ready Player One. That also might be the second half of this trailer features another song by Rush, Tom Sawyer. And then I like how right after we get this title slide with Steven Spielberg, we see the DeLorean time machine from Back to the Future. Now, Steven Spielberg executive produced Back to the Future, so yes, Spielberg is directing a movie that's kind of a love letter to his own work. I actually have some more thoughts on that later. This DeLorean, by the way, is drifting around the Bethesda fountain in New York Central Park. Then we see Joust. Now, Joust is the 80s arcade game where you fight these warrior ostriches, and I love the way it looks here, especially how they turn into an egg when they get destroyed, just like they do in the game. Actually, in the books, Parzival winning a game of Joust plays a critical role in the story. And yeah, in this shot, he's riding a mecha scorpion, which some people say could be a reference to the scorpion from the game Centipede. Let's move on. Okay, so here we see H in action. H is Wade's best friend in the Oasis and a fellow Gunter. H is also an amazing combatant. Now, minor spoiler here about H as a character, and if you don't really want to know it, you can skip to this time. But the filmmakers themselves already announced this, that H will be played by Lena Waithe from Master of None. So yes, H is actually a female by the name of Helen Harris, thus why her avatar's name is pronounced as H. And this whole idea of using avatars to represent yourself however you want is a big theme for Ernest Cline. Actually, he was inspired largely by the movie The Matrix. And the company that made that movie, Village Roadshow, is also making this movie. Fun fact, in the original script for The Matrix, the character Switch was originally going to be a man in the real world who then switches to become a female in The Matrix. And yeah, there are more cool Easter eggs here. H is using an assault rifle from Halo to shoot Freddy Krueger while Duke Nukem fires a rocket. And then I like how H reaches a hand out to collect the coins that Freddy Krueger turns into when he dies. And if you look over here on the left side of the frame, this figure looks like Katana from Mortal Kombat. Let's move on. Okay, so here we meet the Sixers. So in Ready Player One, there's a big corporation called IOI, Innovative Online Industries, and it's run by Nolan Sorrento. He's played by Ben Mendelsohn from Rogue One, and he actually shows up briefly later in this trailer. So Sorrento and his company want to take over the Oasis and monetize it by winning Halliday's egg hunt. So he hires all these operatives to compete in the games for him. They're called Sixers for the 6-digit employee numbers that all begin with 6. And in the shot, notice the words on the news ticker: win the copper key. So to find Halliday's egg, you have to first acquire 3 keys: the copper key, the jade key, and the crystal key. Now this race isn't in the book. Wade actually gets the copper key in a different way, but getting the copper key is a big moment. It makes him famous, and everyone realizes that Halliday's egg hunt isn't just a myth, it's a real thing. And yes, this background is also filled with a ton of Easter eggs, so let's do a quick rundown. There's the van from the A-Team, the 80s TV series. Also over on the right, there's Laura Croft from the Tomb Raider games and Dizzy Wallen from Gears of War. They're chatting. And then next to them, there's the killer car, the Plymouth Fury from Stephen King's Christine. And then over on the left, this looks like the pole position car from the Atari game. And then a couple shots later, you can see Ryu from Street Fighter walking between the cars. Now, Ernest Cline claimed that the Batmobile is somewhere in the background here. I couldn't see it, but I'm thinking that, yeah, as the writer of the movie, he's seen different shots. So somewhere we're gonna see the Batmobile show up in this race. We actually see even more cars appear in the next section. Okay, so there is lots of cool stuff here. H is driving Bigfoot, the monster truck. But then check out the car that it cuts through. This hood has a QR code on it. There's actually a different QR code in the Entertainment Weekly promo shot that didn't lead to anything, but this one does. If you scan it, it translates to the URL jointhequest.io. That takes you to a website for Innovative Online Industries, which is cool, not too exciting on its own. But then when you click on that Twitter link, it takes you to a Twitter page for Ready Player One movie, but then click on that website, readyplayeronemovie.com, and it plays a slightly different cut of the trailer, but right before it does, there's a split-second animation of this scoreboard. Okay, this scoreboard is a big deal from the book. It shows where each person is with their point total, and if you're at the top of it, you're pretty much a celebrity. Now here, we don't see the names on it, but if you freeze it at just the right frame, you can see numbers on it, but you can decode these numbers and translate them to letters, and all of these numbers become names of characters in the movie, which is really cool. But the big implication of it is the fact that they put this in the trailer tells us that there are probably other mysterious codes hidden in the trailer as well. In fact, you've already seen one of them in the clips that we've looked at so far, but there's more to it in the rest of the trailer, so I'll talk about it at the end. Okay, so looking at the other vehicles here, we see this bike, which is Kaneta's bike from the anime film Akira. We actually get a better shot of it later, but behind it is the Ford Falcon Interceptor from Mad Max, and behind that is Kit from Knight Rider. I also like the detail of the Statue of Liberty in the background. Now it's totally in the wrong place. In real life, it's on Liberty Island, not in the middle of the city. But this is kind of like when video games recreate real world locations, placing famous landmarks wherever they're most visually prominent, not necessarily accurate. Or maybe it's another 80s reference to when the magician David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear. Maybe not, but you can also see the DeLorean time machine again, passing the camera right behind the Kaneta bike. And then again, as all the cars go over this Hot Wheels style jump, then as the Kaneta bike skids, the camera whips around, and if you freeze at the right second, you can make out this car in the background. This is the Griswold family car from the National Lampoon's Vacation movie. And yeah, here we get a better look at the bike, and it has an Atari logo on the front, but also a Sega logo and Hello Kitty sticker, and a logo for the Japanese game developer Taito. So the driver of this bike is another character named Artemis. Artemis spelled with a 3, because it's cool. She's a famous gunter and a blogger. Gunter. And yeah, she's named after Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt. Wade actually has a huge crush on her in the books, but I don't want to spoil here where that goes. Let's move on to the final section. Okay, so here we start off with a closer look at the DeLorean, which switches from hover mode to street mode as it avoids these awesome wrecking balls. And the interior is laid out just like it is in Back to the Future. There's a time circuit board on the dash. Notice how the bottom date is the last time departed, which is November 12th, 1955, which in Back to the Future is a day that Marty traveled back in time to. The top line is the destination time, which is October 26th, 1985, which is the year in Marty's present that he's trying to get back to. Meanwhile, the middle line is the present time, which has been changed for this movie to be February 11th, 2045. I also liked how instead of the license plate reading out of time like it is in Back to the Future, they changed it in this movie to Parzival, his username. I also like the detail of the Mad Max Interceptor flipping over and over again, just like it does in Road Warrior. Now, when Wade takes off his Oasis visor, you can see for a second a reflection of Nolan Sorrento. Now, I'm thinking this is a key moment from the book, and again, I don't want to spoil it here. But the final shot of this trailer is the crystal key. Now again, this is the final key that unlocks Halliday's egg, but notice the AA on it. I'm guessing that's for Alcoholics Anonymous. No, Anorak's Almanac. Remember Halliday's personal journal that Wade analyzes so obsessively. But actually, let's go back to look at that Ready Player One title. Now you may have noticed that in this trailer, Spielberg is using a lot of lens flares. Some people are saying he's borrowing J.J. Abrams' signature director move, which is pretty ironic because Abrams, as a director, is basically modeling his visual style on Steven Spielberg. Now, if you pause at the right moments, letters start to appear on screen. They also appear on 2018 and every other time a title has appeared on screen. So the sequence people have found so far is QQS, QQQ, RTVS, QQ. There may have been others, but that's the ones we found. So this is more ARG code. Sometimes in trailers and games, the makers will hide little letters and numbers and like bursts of audio, which when you filter them through various coding programs, they eventually produce phrases and website URLs, sometimes coordinates or more images. So at this moment, people online are still trying to figure out exactly what these letters could mean. It's honestly above my pay grade. But if you have figured it out, let me know. Now, a final word about Ready Player One. I'm very excited for this movie. The whole concept of virtual reality hunters scouring pop culture for hidden Easter eggs is a cool fantasy adaptation of the kind of stuff we do here at New Rockstars. It's how I've tried to describe my job on Tinder. No luck so far. And if you made any additional breakthroughs, yeah, again, tweet me at EA Voss or at New Rockstars. Also, please share this video to get everyone else in on this massive Easter egg hunt. And subscribe to New Rockstars, and you can help us make more videos by contributing to us on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our current donors. Thank you all for watching, and let me know if you found the Easter eggs we hid in this breakdown. Just kidding, there aren't any. Or are there?